Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, rifts within South Africa's biggest opposition party unseat its first ever black leader. Mmusi Maimane quit the Democratic Alliance, which traditionally attracts white Liberal voters, saying that his vision for change is no longer a good fit. Also, Botswana waits for the results from one of its most dramatic ever elections. Let's pit the new party of a former president against the current leader, who used to be his chosen successor. Don't worry, we'll unravel it all for you. And Russia hopes to woo more African interest with the first ever Africa-Russia summit in Sochi. It's hoping to edge out China's influence, but does it have much of a shot? We take a closer look with our correspondent in the Russian city. But first, Mmusi Maimane, the first black leader of South Africa's biggest opposition parties, quit his post. He stepped down on Wednesday, shortly after his predecessor, Helen Zille, returned as the Democratic Alliance's chair. Zille was slammed in the past for saying colonialism wasn't all bad. Since 2015, Maimane's struggled to appeal to the black majority in the country and change the DA's image as a party for white liberals. He now says that there's no longer room for his approach.
Over the past few months, it's become more and more clear to me that there does exist a few within the DA who do not see eye to eye with me. I don't share the vision for the party and the direction it was taking. There have been several months of consistent and a coordinated attack on me and my leadership to ensure that this project failed or I failed. And therefore it is with great sadness that in order to continue this fight for the vision I strongly believe in, the country I so dearly love, I will today step down as leader of the DA.
Well, Aisha Ishmael's in Cape Town for us. She joins us now. Aisha, what more can you tell me about what Mmusi may be referring to there? What are these factions within the party he seems to be referring to?
Well, he talked about being at the helm of this party for 4 years, and he has now come to the conclusion that despite his best efforts, the Democratic Alliance is not the vehicle best suited to take forward his vision of building one South Africa for all. And he also talks about factions within his own party. And this has now led him to step down as the leader of the Democratic Alliance. Now, what's also interesting to note that within 3 days, the Democratic Alliance has lost 3 top leaders. They've lost Mmusi Maimane, they've lost Akhil Trollip, and also the mayor of Johannesburg, Herman Mashaba. Now, this has all come at a time when Helen Zille made a comeback and was elected on the weekend as the chairperson, as the leader of the Federal Executive Committee. And this is not good for the Democratic Alliance, who has for years been trying to shake off this label of being a white party and defending white privilege.
So all of those names that you mentioned, they were all black leaders. What do you think these walkouts signal about the party's current image?
Well, Akhil Trollip, who is the former mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay, is a white man, but he was very, very close to Mmusi Maimane, and he also had a lot of support. But of course, we're having elections in South Africa next year, and this is not these leaders leaving the Democratic Party as leaders this time is not a good sign for the Democratic Alliance. They've been trying to grow their black support base. They've been trying to make inroads into black areas. And we've seen how the Democratic Party has grown since 1994. But of course, earlier this year, we saw a decline in the numbers for the Democratic Alliance, and factions within the Democratic Alliance were blaming Mmusi Maimane for the decline of support for the Democratic Alliance. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how the DA is going to take the party forward, given that there will be local government elections next year. And of course, the party now is leaderless.
Thanks very much. Aisha Ishmael there for us in Cape Town. Well, Botswanan voters headed to the polls on Wednesday for a vote that has seen the ruling Botswana Democratic Party faced its first ever real challenge to its dominance since independence in 1966. That is because the opposition, UDC, has been backed by former President Ian Khama. His father co-founded the BDP. He's dramatically turned against his former ally, Mmusi Maimane, who was handpicked to succeed him as president. Laurent tells us more.
Faced with the tightest electoral contest in Botswana's history, a beaming Mmusi Maimane appeared to relish the challenge as he cast his ballot on Wednesday.
It's the toughest election we've had to fight, but you know, I enjoy a test. I enjoy a challenge. I love campaigning.
The election took on a surprising turn earlier this year after Botswana's former president Ian Khama broke away from the ruling party to endorse opposition candidate Duma Boko. Yet despite the high stakes and the political tension, voting largely unfolded in a calm and respectful atmosphere. Massive lines formed outside polling stations in the early hours of Wednesday as Botswanans turned up in droves to cast their ballot.
The Botswana people are so peaceful, you know, they just accept. Whichever way the result goes, they'll just accept. Yeah. There will it's not like in other countries whereby there will be, you know, people fighting and killing each other, stuff like that. No, here it's so peaceful.
A total of 4 parties are competing for seats in Botswana's General Assembly, with the winner then able to form a government. Election results are expected by the end of the week and could prove the first real tests for Botswana's reputation as one of Africa's most stable countries.
Now, police fired on and tear-gassed crowds as thousands of people protested in Ethiopia on Wednesday over the treatment of the founder of the Oromia media network. Several people were reportedly killed. Jawar Mohammed helped organise protests that brought Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to power this year. His house was surrounded by security forces on Tuesday night after Abiy warned the media against fomenting unrest. Hundreds of demonstrators from Jawar's Oromo ethnic group turned out to support him. The demonstrations jeopardized Abiy's own popularity. Wednesday's protests spread from Addis Ababa to the cities of Ambo, Harar and Jimma. More than 3,000 people have headed to the Russian city of Sochi for a major summit aimed at ramping up Russian influence in Africa. All 54 heads of state from the continent were represented at the summit as Russian leader Vladimir Putin schmoozed leaders throughout the day. It's the first Russia-African summit, and to mark the strategic partnership, Moscow sent nuclear-capable bombers to land in South Africa. Delegates at the 2-day event are tackling everything from nuclear technology to arms deals.
He's on a charm offensive. The Russian president is looking for new allies and trading partners. At the Russia-Africa summit he's hosting in Sochi, Vladimir Putin set out his plans to boost trade with the continent.
We have very good potential for development. We have much to discuss. All this allows us to count on a further increase in trade. I believe that it is within our power to at least double the volume of trade in the next 4 to 5 years.
Russia plans to build its export market, from wheat and fertilizers to energy and weapons, which it already sells to around 30 African countries. It's especially interested in Africa's oil reserves and in mining. Russian companies have made a breakthrough in the diamond sector. But Russia has a long road ahead. Its exports to the continent were estimated at 20 billion euros in 2018, while China exported more than 200 billion euros. Russia also trails behind the EU, India, the US, and Gulf states, in what's been dubbed the third scramble for Africa, as world powers vie for influence in the continent. Now, Putin is looking to regain some of the leverage lost following the collapse of the Soviet Union, a project that's welcomed by guest of honor Abdel Fattah el-Sisi.
We consider Russia a reliable partner of the African continent. We really hope Russia will work in Africa in all spheres and sectors, including financing infrastructure facilities, the energy sphere and road construction.
For African states, the more foreign powers competing to invest in their economies, the better. But critics say that Russia has little concern for human rights or transparency as it seeks to expand its footprint.
Well, Maria Georgieva is following the summit for us in Sochi. She tells us more about why Putin might struggle to compete with China for Africa's attention.
So there are two main reasons to why the Russia-Africa Summit is important. First, this is the first time a Russia-Africa Summit is held, which means that Putin can go beyond his usual partners and also strike deals with countries that, before the Soviet Union collapsed, were closer to the West, countries such as South Africa, for example. And Moscow is also demonstrating its willingness to restore ties with Soviet-era partners, for example, with Angola and Mozambique. So it's about foreign policy for Russia mostly, and to show that a lot is going on. The foreign policy of the recent years has been about maximizing gain from low-cost investments because the West has turned its back on Russia. So what is happening now is that Putin can strike deals, a lot of deals, for lower cost, which makes him quite weak in a sense, economically speaking. Russia plays a weak hand very well when it has deals and partnerships all over. And because economically, Russia cannot compete with the US or China, even if they want to be perceived as an equal power broker. US and China are the leading foreign investment giants on the African continent. So what Putin does here is that he turns politics into business, and this opportunism makes him willing to strike a lot of different deals for less money.
Over there for us in Sochi. Well, that's all we have time for now for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.